Hello and welcome back everyone to Last Level Press. I'm Mr. Black and this is Quantum Rush Champions. I covered this game a couple of times during its early access period on Steam, and apparently that coverage was very well received, as one of those videos has since rocketed up to become the second most popular video on the entire channel. And so I figured I ought to return to the game once more to cover now that it has released from early access into its fully finished version. And with the new version comes a wealth of new content. 5 new tracks, up to 7 tiers, and I believe 3 new campaigns, one for each of the manufacturers present within the game. So let's jump right on into the game and demonstrate some of that new content. So we shall load there, choose, let's see, which manufacturer? Nitroid Racing, or Nanofiber Motorworks, or Ion Energy Systems. I believe it was Nanofiber that I was working for. We've got either Macrostellar Warfare, or the Jumpstart tournaments that those familiar with the early access version of the game are familiar with. So we'll jump back into the Warfare I've played a little bit of, and jump now down to Tier 3. Each of the tiers now come complete with their own unique bosses. I didn't realize until rather recently that the early access version actually recycled some of the same bosses over and over. Now that the game is fully released, no longer the case. So I've only got a little while longer remaining in Tier 3 until I unlock its boss. I may, perhaps, make that the objective of this episode. A couple of new game modes were also introduced with the full version of the game. I can't recall exactly which ones they were off the top of my head. I should note, however, that the retail cost for the finished game is now $10. I don't recall exactly how that compares to the original early access cost of the game. I'll note that in the captions below for a matter of clarification. And get on rolling. So, I do believe this mode should be familiar. A matter of getting all of these rings in succession without missing one or striking walls, and thus making it a sort of targeted time challenge, which I rather enjoy. I actually kind of like these matches that don't necessarily require other racers be present, and the singular feature I really craved for this game unfortunately has not been implemented, that is to say, online multiplayer. However, a man can hold out hope all the same. God, I need to get away from those things, because not only do they disrupt one's vision, but they also slow one down. Okay, there we go. And I don't know if I ever noted before, but I really like the kind of techno-jazzy soundtrack in the background of this game. I've got it turned rather low right now, so I don't know whether or not you guys will be able to hear it. I only barely got that ring. But note all the same, I like the music in this game. Okie dokie then. So, I should also note, as I've just received quite a few of them, that achievements are now in place for this game, so I've earned a bronze. Did I receive any rewards for this game? Or rather, for that race? Nope, apparently not. But I have now unlocked the boss, Elena Voltis. If this boss runs out of energy, he extracts energy out of his companions. Okay, spell check. You could use with a quick patch. Hit him when his energy runs out. I'm not quite sure that's a him, but, you know, to each their own. Let's jump in and take Elena on. I'm not sure whether or not I will be able to, considering, as with before, bosses are unforgivingly difficult in this game. I really enjoy those races because they will push your craft to its utmost limits and force you to think outside of the box sometimes. At one point, I realized that it was easier to let a certain boss lap me because it was essentially a deathmatch race, and so placement didn't really matter a great deal. And apparently I've got other competition this time. This is the first time I've faced a boss where other racers were present than myself and the boss themselves. Alright, different. I can work with this. So I don't recall exactly what the energy thing said. Oh well, I'm just gonna keep to my usual strategy and attempt to get as many of these targeted rocketing pickups as I can and just nail them. Although, it seems that I've got... Ow, I was paying too much attention to the HUD and not enough to where I'm going! Okay, I need to get rid of these little plasma balls, because unfortunately they are damn near useless, considering targeting is rather difficult in this game without something that automatically locks onto enemies like these rockets. And so I tend to just ditch those pickups in favor of the homing rockets, which I've now got 3 of. I'm not really sure what the effective difference is between the rockets with the icon of the crosshairs and those without, considering the crosshairs take a quick moment to lock onto an enemy and essentially guarantee a hit, but it seems as though the dumbfire rockets also lock on to whomever is closest, which is usually not really too much of a different scenario, so I'm not entirely sure what the difference is between the two of them, but they are quite useful all the same. There we go. There goes the lock rocket, and that was the boss I think I just hit. So I need to get ahead of this red guy so that I can apparently get... Ow! I died. A better shot. Alright. I'm not sure whether or not that's meant to be a deathmatch or a race. I think it's a deathmatch. In which case, I really need to focus upon the rockets and make that my goal. So, let's see. If the boss runs out of energy, he extracts it from his companions. Okay, so the other racers present are kinda other racers and really just there to act as batteries for him. So hit him when his energy runs out. Okay, I kinda get that now. So, again, creative use of what is otherwise a rather mundane aspect of a race, the presence of other, I would say players, but other racers really, and turning that into a unique mechanic for the defeat of this particular boss. Creative use. Now, I was going to mention before that certain surfaces one flies over will recharge one's energy, which I've only recently really realized is detracted from by certain weapons like lasers, or is burned when one uses afterburners, like so. You'll notice in the top right that blue bar sinking down, and unfortunately, due to the fact that I'm still playing this on a keyboard rather than with a gamepad, I know, it makes controlling while boosting a bit difficult due to the fact that the boost key is S, and I've still got to kind of maneuver with the usual W, S, and D keys, so it makes it a little bit cumbersome to control, but I've no one to blame for that but myself, considering I've known for quite a while now that a gamepad would make controlling this game quite a bit easier. I'm just kind of lazy, and so I didn't want to mess with the installation of one. So, now then, there we go. Alright, I've got a couple of rockets and those plasma ball things, which again, I'm just going to ditch. I don't even have anyone to attempt to dumbfire them at, but oh well. Come on, give me some new rockets. Give me some rockets. Nope, don't want any of those. And that's the thing I've kind of noticed about this, is that certain pickups, unless I'm really mistaken, are nearly useless against AI opponents, the likes of the vision-obscuring blinding weapon, which is devastating when used against you by an enemy, but I can't really tell whether or not, due to the fact that they're AIs, it affects the enemy whatsoever. Alright, I'm gonna lay mines, because why not? And so I really, really hope that an online version of this game gets implemented, and that blue track I just ran over was an energy restoring track, which one needs to kind of hold out for, and I just realized I apparently picked up a frost aura at some point, and so that precluded me from grabbing a rocket. There we are. Alright, I've got another one. And it seems as though, as I've encountered in a couple of different boss encounters so far, I may need to kind of anticipate where they might be. Alright, I'm catching up to one of them by actually stopping, which I've done before, and allowing the boss to lap me, such that I can then immediately race up behind them because I'm not worried about place. I kind of think they might be lapping me, actually, and then just blast them with everything I've got. Alright, now, I don't remember what the key is for it. Yeah, okay, R is for the reverse cam. So, is the boss behind me or ahead of me? I cannot tell. Alright, let's restore that. And once again, the speed at which these races take place is just astounding. On certain maps, when one really starts to gain a lot of momentum and to get those constant speed boosts, especially on time trials, is a little bit disorienting. And at times when one is operating on less of a traditional track like this and more of a fully three-dimensional environment, like racing on the outside of a tubular environment, it gets incredibly disorienting, such that I actually got a little bit nauseated at one point due to what I suspect is kind of a mild variety of motion sickness. But it speaks to the immersion of the game that I should actually be so put off by the speed at which I'm moving. As I've heard said of a couple of racing games in the past that it's so disorienting to move this quickly. Yes, it is. It should be. No one is really built with human perception to keep track of incredibly advanced movement. And so to complain otherwise is complaining more about your own physiology than game mechanics. Of course, certain things can take the edge off of just how disorienting it is. Things like HUD, things like environmental design, things like high contrast environments that keep exactly what is the track, what are walls, what are obstacles, etc. very clear. But to a degree, one can only keep track of so much after a certain speed. And speaking of, I don't think I'm quite fast enough to really keep a competitive edge on any of these guys, so I think I'm going to rely on my old trick. I'm going to slow things down and let them catch up to me on a lengthy stretch of track, such that I can light them up. Aha! There you are! Gotcha! Alright, now, let's launch every weapon we've got and take him down! Yes, there we are! Okay. That took entirely too long due to my needing to let her lap me, but I managed to bring them down. Alright, so that ought to unlock Tier 4, in which I've also now unlocked a new part, and I've apparently unlocked, what is that, a badge for having beaten her? Alright, let's see here. Now, Tier 4. Good God, that thing looks like a tank. This Elena Voltis looks non-threatening, but her tricks pack a punch. In spite of this, you manage to outdo her and grab the title. Your commitment and courage pay off and will also help you go beyond your limits in the upcoming challenges. Keep on going. Alright then. I do believe I shall leave this here rather than jumping straight into Tier 4. But before I do want to kind of give a quick spotlight to the other campaigns for the other manufacturers. There's the Solarium Championship, whose logo actually looks quite a bit like the Steam logo, as well as the... wait, no. Macrostellar Warfare is what I did before. Buccaneer Blasters, there we are. Essentially, space pirate racing. I rather like that. So it looks as though the rather feather-light narrative of the entire premise behind the game's racing presupposes that each of these companies are involved in different aspects of galactic economy, and Nanofabric Motorworks, for instance, are involved in some of the arms trade, and so the races are less races and more crash test dummy trials, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that the game doesn't take itself entirely seriously. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and the fact that it does incentivize one to continue playing by rewarding one with new parts that are randomized after one gains medals in different tiers allows one to continually work upon the craft used for that tier until one is ready to complete the boss race, and then you're back down to being a small fish in a big pond once you've unlocked the next tier. It's a kind of predictable cycle, but a rewarding one all the same, as it keeps one coming back to be like, I know I can shave that extra couple of seconds off of this time, or I know I can kill one or two more on a deathmatch race, etc., etc. I like that about it. It's a game that I get into certain moods for, and then I'll just play for a couple of hours on end once I'm in like that racing zen mindset that a lot of racing fans are familiar with. And so I do encourage you guys to give this a shot if you're a fan of sort of like out-of-the-box racing games that aren't just another Need for Speed or another Forza or some other sort of conventional racing game, something a little bit more sci-fi. Again, I really, really wish that online multiplayer were implemented for this game. Unfortunately, it is not, so I can't necessarily advise anybody and everybody to go and pick this game up on Steam, but racing fans and those of the original version of Quantum Rush, which I only recently realized was an indie game available on its own website, I can definitely encourage you guys to go and check this out. So, I'm Mr. Black here at Lessable Press, and as always, I wish you all good gaming and Godspeed. Who's the wise guy? He needs a bullet for the brain. He's gonna give you an offer you can't refuse, and that offer is lead in the skull, right in your face hole. Oh god.